Hey there. Before we dive into today's episode, I'm so excited to tell you about the brand new Neuro membership, a unique nervous system support container where regulation meets real life. As a member, you'll receive access to the brand new Neuro regulation support app. Plus, you'll be able to join our private heartbeat community completely off social media. You'll also get monthly live coaching, somatic practice labs, and a container where naming isn't shaming and transformation happens through supported practice. Are you ready for real nervous system support? Visit leannahunt.com/NHM podcast to learn more about joining our regulated community. The link will also always be in the show notes. And just a note, this membership is not therapy or crisis support. And due to my ethical responsibilities, unfortunately, it is not for current clinical therapy clients. Past clients, please reach out directly to discuss options. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Neuro podcast, the show for cycle breakers, parents, young adults, and helping professionals ready to understand their nervous system through a generational lens, heal what isn't theirs to carry, and consciously choose what comes next. Hi, I'm your host, Leanna Hunt, an associate clinical mental health counselor and certified performance coach. Each week, you'll get stories, science, and somatic practices, plus my signature 4N framework: notice, name, nurture, and navigate to help you honor resilience, break silence, and build deeper connection with yourself and those you love, all while shaping a legacy of safety, freedom, and possibility. Welcome back to the Neuro podcast. Sometimes when we begin healing, we become very aware of what hurt, what was missing, what felt unsafe, and what we had to learn to survive. And that truly does matter because we need language for that. We need honesty about what shaped us. But I want to offer something else today too, because not everything you inherited has been harmful for you. Some of what was passed down to you has been strength. Some of it has been devotion. I'm sure there is a lot of resilience. And some of it was care in the best form people knew how to give. And part of becoming a neuro heir is not just learning what to release, it's also learning what you want to keep. Because healing is not only about breaking cycles, it's also about carrying forward what is still good, what is still true, and what still belongs with you. Now, for some of you, this might feel tender because if there was real pain in your family, or maybe there still is, naming the good can feel confusing. It might feel like minimizing what has happened, or betraying your own experience, or trying to make it okay. But that's not what this is. This is not about bypassing. This is about allowing complexity, because both can be true at the same time. There can be wounding, and there can be wisdom. There can be survival patterns, and there can be strength underneath them. There can be silence, and there can be love that didn't have language. There can be fear, and there can be protection trying to keep something safe. There can be absence, and there can be effort in the only way someone knew how to give it. There can be disconnection, and there can be a longing for closeness that never had a place to land. There can be control, and there can be a nervous system trying to create safety. There can be emotional distance, and there can be generations that were never taught how to feel. There can be pain, and there can be resilience that carried people through it. There can be patterns you don't want to repeat, and there can be parts of those patterns that were built from something meaningful. And healing is learning how to hold both without losing yourself in either. Let me say that one more time. Healing is learning how to hold both without losing yourself in either. We're all wired to scan for safety. That's how the nervous system works. But depending on what we experienced growing up, that scan can start to look very different. For some of us, it became focused on what might be wrong, what might shift, what might not feel safe. And honestly, that makes sense. And if your nervous system learned that safety depended on noticing, on tension, on unpredictability, on emotional shifts, or maybe unmet needs, then of course you became good at finding what was off. That, my friends, is your own inner intelligence. That was your nervous system learning, if I can read the room, I can stay safe. But healing expands our capacity. It helps us begin to notice something else too, which is resource. Not just what dysregulated us, but what also maybe has supported us. Not just what felt unsafe, but what felt even a little bit steady, more predictable, or grounding. And this isn't just a mindset shift. This is actually supported in research as well. There are studies showing that early environments don't just shape behavior, they can shape biology. In one foundational line of research, scientists found that nurturing caregiving environments can shape how the stress system develops at the level of gene expression, particularly in genes involved in regulating cortisol and the body's stress response. And again, as always, if you guys want to see any of the research I cite, it will always be in the show notes. So what this research means is that early experiences of care, consistency, and connection don't just feel supportive in the moment, they help shape how the nervous system learns to respond over time, which means the environment doesn't only pass down stress, it can also shape the capacity to regulate it. Even small, repeated moments of safety can begin to teach the body something new. And research also shows that higher levels of nurturing care are associated with more regulated stress responses later in life. Again, not just emotionally, but biologically as well. So what does that actually look like in real life? It might look like this. Maybe you walk into a room and immediately your body scans for who's upset, what's the tone, is anybody off, do I need to adjust myself? And remember, that's the old pattern. That's the system doing exactly what it learned to do. But now with awareness, you might now be able to pause and ask, I wonder what else is here for me too. Is there someone who feels safe here? Is there a steady presence in the room? Is there a place here where maybe my body can soften even just 5%? Can I feel my feet on the ground? Can I notice where my body feels the most comfortable? And again, my friends, that's resource. And as I've talked about, I think in the last episode, in somatic work, we called this pendulation, where we are noticing the intenseness of scanning for safety, the intenseness of maybe the anxiety, what we're aware of, but that we can also start to notice at the same time using our outside surroundings, like outside our body, but also internal cues as well, what also feels supportive. It's that back and forth from going, okay, what part of me feels activated to what support do I have? And this is all resource for you. And at first, it might feel unfamiliar because your system wasn't trained to look for that. I see this a lot in my work. Someone will come in and say, I feel anxious all the time. I can't relax. And as we start to slow things down, I'll ask what feels supportive right now, even just a little. And then that's where we'll breathe together and pause because their system isn't used to that question. And then maybe they'll notice, the chair feels supportive on my back. I'm feeling my feet comfortable on the carpet. Oh, I just noticed that I took a big deep breath. And I'm noticing that I'm settling as I'm talking to you. And we stay there for sometimes a long time because your nervous system doesn't just heal by analyzing stress. It heals by experiencing something different and experiencing those resources. And this is why that research matters, because it shows us that it's not only extreme stress that shapes the system, it's also repeated moments of support, consistent signals of safety, small experiences of regulation. And those experiences help shape how the stress system develops and responds over time. So when we talk about what was passed down, yes, there may have been stress patterns, and there most likely is. And yes, for so many of you that I've talked to, there has been intense patterns of hypervigilance, but there may have also been moments of care, of protection, of steadiness and presence. And noticing all of these things too, all of these really matter because they shape your system just as much. And often those moments might feel quieter. Maybe they are less obvious than the stress or the pain, but they were there. So healing isn't just about learning to see what went wrong. It's about retraining your system to also recognize what is supporting me right now. And sometimes that question is where something new begins, because a lot of the conversations around general patterns focus on trauma, which is real, And it's very important. But if stress can shape the system, then so can focusing and noticing the care. If adversity can leave a mark, then couldn't nurturing too? And we see this not just in early development, but across the lifespan, because the brain remains plastic, meaning it continues to change based on our environments and our experiences, including things like therapy, safe relationships, that body-based somatic work, intentional practices like meditation. All of those are supportive. And research in neuroscience shows that experiences like cognitive therapy and meditation are associated with structural and functional changes in the brain, particularly in areas related to emotional regulation and the stress response. How cool is that? So now we're not just talking about what was passed down, we're also talking about what is still being shaped, what is still being practiced. What are you still trying to build? Because every time your system experiences things like safety, connection, completion, and support, it's learning something new. It means your system is updating, it's reorganizing. And this is where your healing work can become so important. Because even when there are things you've lived through that you didn't choose that shaped your nervous system, remember, you are not stuck with those patterns. Through things like parts work that I've explained, through body-based practices and somatic work, through other modalities like brain spotting, and other body-based tools that help us release and reintegrate after trauma, we're not just talking about understanding what happened, we're working with the body. Because so much of what gets carried forward isn't just memory, it's unfinished stress cycles, moments where the body didn't get to fight, where it didn't get to run, where it didn't get to complete the response, and so it stays stored. But when we begin to work with the nervous system through so many different body-based modalities, we can begin to notice what's there, name the parts holding it. We get to start to nurture our own system and allow those cycles to complete. And when that happens, the system doesn't just feel different, it begins to respond differently, which is that navigate step. It begins to organize differently. It begins to build new patterns, and it begins to make new choices. This reflects a core principle of neuroplasticity, that the brain can reorganize itself through experience, through forming new patterns over time in response to repeated inputs and interventions. And that means healing isn't just about understanding your past, it's also about participating in what your system is becoming. And as you begin to do that work, something else often starts to come into view. Not just what you want to release, but what you want to carry forward. Okay? So maybe the question becomes, what was strong in your people? Even if it wasn't expressed perfectly. But what was strong in your ancestors? Maybe no one talked about emotions, but they showed up when it mattered. Maybe tenderness wasn't spoken, but it was cooked into beautiful meals. It was worked into long hours, and it was carried in sacrifice. And maybe your family did not have regulation language like so many families didn't. But maybe your family did have grit. Your family has had endurance. It's had loyalty. Maybe your family has had faith, protectiveness, and devotion. And maybe some of what shows up in you now, such as your ability to keep going, your depth, your sensitivity, your intuition, and your care for others, maybe some of that is legacy too. And I want to share a personal example of this because I think it might help you see it in your own life too. For me, this looks so much like my mom, Joy. And her name isn't just her name. It's something she's truly lived. And anyone who knows her would say that. There has always been a lightness to her and a warmth, and a way she brings people together is truly one of her gifts. And growing up, that mattered more than I think I even realized at the time, because there were also parts of my environment that didn't feel safe. My dad had very unpredictable emotions and an intensity in his tone that often scared me. So my nervous system learned how to read the room. I learned very young how to anticipate his moods, how to stay very aware. And that's part of my story, but that's not the whole story. Because alongside that, there was my mom, Joy, and there was the emotion of joy. There was actual joy. She made things fun as much as she could. She cooked us amazing, healthy food. She brought us together with cousins and extended family whenever possible. There was connection, there was laughter, and there was something that felt different in those moments. And I remember this so clearly. We always knew that if we got our chores done, we could go to the beach. And to this day, the ocean is still my favorite place. It's where I feel the most calm and the most grounded and the most safe. And this is where healing maybe becomes a little more nuanced, because it's not just about asking, what do I need to break? It's also asking, what do I want to keep? You do not have to reject your entire lineage in order to heal, but you're also allowed to become discerning. You are allowed to say, this pattern ends with me, and this strength continues through me. You can say, I can release the silence and keep the devotion. I can release the fear and keep the faith. I can release the overfunctioning and keep the reliability. You don't have to throw it all away to become somebody new, because yes, there may be things you inherited that were shaped by stress, but that is not the whole story, because the same biology that allowed those patterns to form also allows for change, also allows for repair, and also allows for something new to be built. And that means you are not only breaking cycles, you are also a pattern creator. You are a pathway builder. You are a regulator, a translator of what comes before you into something more conscious. Because every time you notice what's happening in your body, every time you name what you're carrying, every time you nurture what needs care and navigate something differently, you are creating new patterns. And over time, this is how you regulate, this is how you repair, and this is how you rise. So maybe the question isn't only, what am I healing from? Maybe it's also, what am I healing toward? What do I want to carry forward? What was good in my people and my ancestors? And what still belongs with me? And maybe also, what can I now express in a more regulated, grounded, and intentional way? Remember, becoming a neuro heir is not just about ending what was hard. It is about recognizing what was strong and choosing how it lives on through you. And maybe, my friends, this is how your story begins to change. So wherever you are, wherever you're listening, my prayer for you and my hope through the rest of this week is that you can think about your own story. You can think about the stories that you have come from and the story that you want to intentionally put out into the world in the future for your children and those to come. Because remember, you get to choose what lives through you, what you pass on, and also what ends with you. And I truly believe that there are powerful ways we can do this work, also still with gratitude and love and appreciation for those that came before us. So make it, again, as I always say, a beautiful week. Find ways to celebrate your small wins. Find ways to slowly integrate these learnings and these things from today into your own life, and to think about what you want to pass forward. Until next time, bye guys. Thanks for joining me on the Neuro Heir podcast. This work is about honoring resilience in yourself and also those who came before you, all while finding freedom from what was never yours to carry. With the help of stories, science, somatic tools, and the 4 Ns, notice, name, nurture, and navigate, you have a path toward deeper connection with yourself, your loved ones, and the legacy you want to pass on. If today's episode spoke to you, share it with someone who's ready to step into this work too. And follow the show so you never miss an episode. Remember, you may not have chosen what you inherited, but you can choose what comes next.